Welcome to the Book Party Podcast.
Join us as we journey into the world of books with Michael T.
Prepare to be captivated by engaging interviews, insightful discussions, and fascinating stories. You'll discover new adventures and gain insight into the creative process of the authors themselves as they share their struggles and accomplishments. Now let's hear from Michael T.
This is Michael T., and I thank you for being with us this morning. Today we are sitting down with the happiest author you will ever meet. Is today your best day ever? Are you happy, grateful, motivated, and living your best life? Today is your day to answer with a definitive yes. The Life is Too Short guy will give you a practical roadmap for making the most of every minute and living a happier and more fulfilling life. This author takes you on an inspiring and emotional journey, weaving provocative personal stories and the stories of others who have had major aha moments. Result, the Life is Too Short guy, or LITSG, philosophy. Explore the LITSG philosophy and learn how you can use it daily. Principles include attitude is everything, the power of positivity, funny things are everywhere, minutes matter, can't make it alone, take the tools you learn in this book and make today and every day the best day ever. Let me introduce you to the author, Scott White, and his book, Life is Too Short Guy. The Life is Too Short guy, Scott White, the happiest guy you will ever meet after spending over a decade in investment banking on Wall Street. He took a chance and became an entrepreneur and business builder. Today, he is chairman and CEO of a public real estate company. Scott is always looking for his next challenge and has completed 1 Ironman triathlon, 15 marathons. Now Scott is on a mission to make the world happier, one smile at a time. His endless energy motivates and inspires everyone he meets to focus on happiness, gratefulness, and positivity. Scott is married to his high school sweetheart, Jen. Together, they are two of the world's most passionate Rutgers sport fans. Now, Scott, why don't you take it from here, fill in the blanks, and tell our listeners about yourself? Go ahead, Scott.
Wonderful. Well, look, you did a great job laying it out. I am the recent author of The Life is Too Short guy. I'm a husband and father of 2 daughters, and that's pretty important to me and something I'm proud of. Today, I am chairman and CEO of a public real estate company. I'm a founding partner of a student housing development company. And most importantly, on the show today, I'm an author and speaker about Life is Too Short, the philosophy to inspire, motivate, and push people to realize that every day is a blessing. Go about your life with a lens of positivity and try to make every day the very best day ever.
That's fantastic, because we actually need to do that, and everybody needs to make the best day ever. So in your publishing journey, did you do this as a self-publishing journey or an author agency type journey?
So it is a hybrid publisher journey. I started working on it with a class. Actually, there was a class that was offered to help me learn the principles and foundations for writing a book. And from that class, I created a manuscript that I submitted to a hybrid publisher who accepted it. And then that hybrid publisher provided a lot of the different services that you would need for editing and finalizing and publishing a book. But I retain all the rights to the book and, worked very closely with my publisher, New Degree Press, to finalize and get this book in circulation.
Because a lot of people have a fear of going to the agency part because of losing control.
Right.
And on the other hand, there's a collaborative effort if you do it completely yourself, which is the indie author style. is actually very challenging to do everything yourself. I
Yes.
mean, it's difficult. And I've interviewed one girl, she was 12 years old, and
Wow.
she did absolutely everything.
Wow.
She didn't collaborate. Well, her mother helped her a little bit, but she didn't collaborate on anything. She did the book cover, she did the editing, she did, I mean, everything herself. And she took on that challenge, and she's already on her next novel.
That's
So I
awesome.
got to give her that applause, and got to keep track of her because she's a rising star. I got to tell you, she did it all.
That is impressive.
And, the editing and formatting and all of that stuff, I've written 3. I'm working on number 4. Of course, they're nonfiction. I can't do fiction. I'm just not geared that way. Uh, but editing is not that much of a challenge for me. Formatting, that's a challenge. So I've got to have somebody kind of do the formatting and stuff for me. But publishing, I don't have an issue with that. So let's go on to this a little bit. When you're writing your book, everybody has the best moments and worst moments. What was your worst author moment that you would consider being that worst author moment when you're writing this book?
So certainly early on with what I'd call, or people refer to as imposter syndrome. I sat down, I had a concept, but I didn't believe that I could bring it all together. I didn't believe that anyone would actually care about what I wrote. And I started putting random thoughts on paper. This was the way the class and the program was designed. When I got into it, they talked about the proverbial sort of vomiting concepts on paper. Don't make a big outline. Don't write sort of the path from beginning to end. Instead, just create the concepts and put it on paper. And I really started to get worried that it wasn't going to go anywhere. Great, I got all these random concepts that aren't tied together. I don't have an outline. I don't have a path. How will this come together in some coherent way where there's a through line and there's an opportunity to present a concept? So I definitely early on, the first, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks of the journey, I struggled. I really struggled with, am I the right person to be doing this? Is now the right time in my life? Will I say anything that anyone will care about?
Okay. Yeah, for me, I have to have an absolute strong outline and go from there. If I don't have a strong researched outline, I'd get lost quickly. Okay, take us to a point in your book where you'd had no matter what you were doing. I mean, no matter. You could have been driving, you could have been working on something else. I mean, anything. And all of a sudden, this incredible light bulb went off in your head, and you just said, man, I got to have a pen and paper. I've got to write this down right now. Take us to a moment like that, just an epiphany moment.
Yeah, so that aha moment came to counter the exact opportunity or the worst moment that I just laid out for you. So I spent, call it 6 to 8 weeks of vomiting ideas on paper, all sorts of incoherent, no through line, not related. Can I pull this all together? And then I decided, as I mentioned before, I'm chairman and CEO of a public company, and we were doing an offsite about, I'd say 90 days into my writing journey. I was like, you know what? Here's a great opportunity for me to see what I've written, try to bring it together in a coherent presentation and present it to my company. And that's exactly what I did. And I spent, I'd say, almost all day, call it 8 hours, looking at all my concepts and taking them into a PowerPoint presentation that had an intro, had a series of stories, related examples, had a conclusion, had key takeaways. And when I delivered that, actually getting up and delivering it to my company, that was the aha moment. I was like, this is the book, this is the concept, all those disparate ideas coming together in one coherent presentation that has key takeaways, has key action items. That was the aha moment. It was at that moment that I was like, I can do this. I can now go back and bring this book forward, bring this book to a point where it makes sense and write something that people will want to read. So that was my aha moment. And to this day, I still use parts of that presentation. I don't use it exactly the way it was, but I'm now out doing a public speaking tour around the country. And there are slides and elements from that original presentation 90 days into my author journey that I still use today.
One of the things, it says in there about the running that you've done, the physical stuff that you've done, to be able to write and to use your mental acuity, having a physical ability or being in shape helps that as well. Being in really good physical condition really helps your mental condition at the same time. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think even more importantly than being in good shape, I think having the discipline and the mindset of an athlete or someone that is serious about their fitness, which I am, parlays very well into writing. How so? Well, first of all, when you train for something, and as you've mentioned, I've trained for a lot of races, you need a plan. You need discipline. There are times you're going to wake up in the morning, it's 5 o'clock, it's dark, it's cold, you don't really want to run, and this is part of the plan. This is part of the commitment you've made. You're only cheating yourself if you decide, you know what, it's raining out. I don't feel like running today. I never do that. Same thing with writing a book. When I started, I didn't have a clear plan. I quickly developed the plan. It all came together. And I had to be disciplined. There was, I was and still do work a full-time job. As I mentioned before, I'm a parent. I have other obligations. So there were times that I would literally get up at 4 a.m. and write for 2 or 3 hours before the rest of the world woke up. So there's so much that you can take from training, being an athlete, being into fitness, and bring that into the discipline, the structure, the path that you would create for being a writer.
Let's go to today. What is the one thing that you're the most excited about, the most fired up about today?
Well, I'm fired up every day. That's part of the story I tell in the book is about living your best life every day. And right now I'm really fired up about the book and about getting out and sharing this message. I truly believe this is my calling in life, and I'm on a mission to make the world happier one smile at a time. So I am fired up about people reading the book. I'm fired up about speaking. I've been speaking before companies and at conferences and getting reactions, getting people to smile, getting people that aha moment, that light bulb to go off over their head where they're like, I could do this. That's my main point. When I set out to write this book and when I present it now, I very deliberately, in fact, I worked hard at this, made it a practical, approachable, easy to read, easy to apply handbook, a manual. I can do this kind of thing. It's not an esoteric academic work. It's not based on a lot of research or principles of other people. It's day-to-day blocking and tackling. It's waking up and making the most of every day. And while it might sound simple, it's amazing to me how many people either read it or hear me present it. And then I hear from them days, weeks, months later. And the feedback has just been really overwhelming and really gets me fired up. People that have said, after I heard you, after I read your book, I went out and bought a plane ticket and visited my mom, who I hadn't seen in X number of years. I decided to join a church choir I'd been thinking about, but wasn't really sure I was ready. I decided to start writing a play manuscript. I decided to leave work, go home, and spend time with my kids. I could go on for the next half hour and tell you those types of emails and texts I've gotten. That gets me.
This is Michael T. Thank you for being with us this morning. Please go to bookpartypodcast.com, hit that subscribe tab on top, then scroll down to the icon of your choice, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey. You can find us on your favorite platforms where you can download and follow us there, and please leave a review. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get the latest information on upcoming shows. Now, Scott, we're going to enter the lightning round. The lightning round is what we have for 4 pointed questions for 4 pointed answers. In the beginning, when you started writing, before you were become an author, what was holding you back from becoming an author in the first place?
Imposter syndrome. Can I do this? What would I write about? What would people care about? Will anyone be interested? It wasn't finding the time. I knew I could do that. It wasn't the ability to write. I love to write. It was, will anybody care?
We get that a lot, is that type of an answer. And what you've got to do is write from you, not worried about other authors, what they've written, if they're successful. You just have to write from you,
Agreed.
Okay,
Absolutely agreed.
when you were writing, what was the best advice you had ever received?
I'm going to tie it right to that first point about, your ability. Will anyone care? Am I really an author? And early on in the process, I spoke to one of the editors who said, look at your past successes and things that maybe you didn't think you could accomplish and what happened, and bring that into the writing world. So, whether it was business or it was personal, whatever you've done, you've had successes, use that to motivate and inspire you. So, for example, I was like, will anyone care what I write about? And then he's like, well, have you written before? Yes, I've published articles. Did people read it? Did people respond to it? Did people care about it? Yes. Okay. So now here you've opened up the box, the proverbial box, to say, of course you can do this. So it was that motivation, that proverbial kick in the whatever, to say, yes, you can do this.
Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Setting goals. I set goals on the book journey. I set goals post the book journey. I constantly have a running list. I think it's really important. One of the things I talk about in the book is minutes matter. You only have a finite number of minutes. What are you doing with them? And I think one of the ways to think about how you're maximizing the value of your minutes is to set clear goals. Set goals that go across a range of things that are important to you. So for me, I have personal goals. I have goals for things I want to do with my family. I have professional goals. I have physical goals. And then I have timelines. So here are things I want to accomplish tomorrow. Here are things I want to accomplish this month. Here are things that I want to accomplish this year. Here are things that I want to accomplish longer term. And that gives me a roadmap to maximizing the value of my minutes.
With our listeners, do you have an internet resource that you use when you write?
So I didn't have this at the time, but subsequent, I've been using AI and ChatGPT quite a bit. So it didn't exist when I wrote the book or at least I wasn't aware of it a year and a half ago. But now, as I write newsletters and social media posts and I market the book, I have gotten immense value out of using ChatGPT.
Okay, Scott, we are now going to enter the grand finale. So why don't you tell our listeners a way that they can get in touch with you, follow you, find your book, and then take your time and tell our listeners about your book.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So I guess the best way to find me, to learn more about me, to follow me, to find my social media is through the website. So my website is lifeistooshortguy.com. Lifeistooshortguy.com. And you could find the book there, and you could obviously find the book on Amazon. So that's the best way to get in touch with me and to find out more about the book, find out more about my speaking. I'm doing a lot of speaking right now. Let me tell you a little bit about the book. So the book itself, The Life is Too Short Guy, is a very practical, approachable, easy to read, simple, useful tools for living your very best life. It is the intersection of happiness, gratefulness, and urgency. Get it done and get it done today. Don't wait for tomorrow. And in the book, I lay out 10 principles for people to think about. And my belief is that not all the principles will apply to everybody, but as you sift through the principles, there are nuggets, there are tools that you can extract for living a happier life. My mission is to change the dialogue as you read the headlines. 90% of all news media coverage is negative. 80% of all thoughts have a negative tint to them. Americans are more unhappy than they've been in the last 50 years. Think about that. The last half century, Americans are more unhappy. We hear about despair. We hear about loneliness. We hear about depression. Suicide is skyrocketing. All these things trouble me. I live a very happy, grateful life. And look, I've had setbacks. There's no doubt about it. Everyone has things they have to overcome. And in the book, I talk about a couple of big milestones in my life, things that really changed my perspective, that led me to this philosophy. I talk about when I was 10 years old, my father had a heart attack, and what it was like to deal with that, to understand, to really think through. This is the mid 1980s, and it was a very serious situation. He survived. And then I talk about the events of 9/11, and I was in downtown Manhattan, a couple of blocks north of the World Trade Center. I had walked by it a few minutes before the first plane crashed. I heard the first plane crash. I watched the second plane crash. I watched the towers fall, and that had a pretty meaningful impact on me. And then, subsequent to that, over the last 15 or so years, I lost both of my parents. My father passed away, I guess, about 15 years ago, I think. My mom about 6 years ago. And these four events had a major impact on me in the philosophy that I've come up with in terms of living your best life, happiness, gratefulness, living in the moment. And in the book, not only do I detail these personal stories, I also talk about major aha moments that other people have had, major epiphanies that people that have had catastrophic illness, catastrophic injury, death of a relative, trying to think of other, attempted suicide. These are all situations that people have dealt with, they've overcome, they've learned from. And my goal is to share my experiences and their experiences with the readers, so that reading this book becomes that aha moment. Reading this book, and a lot of people have said this, I was struggling with, somebody told me very recently, they lost their job last year. They were struggling with going through a divorce, and they really thought the world was caving in on them. And then they read a story in my book about a college football player who became paralyzed and what he's done with his life since. And this person said to me literally a couple weeks ago over drinks, like, wow, me losing my job and my marriage failing doesn't even compare remotely to what that young person has gone through and what they've overcome and what they've built and what their message is. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to get people to stop, to pause, to realize there is so much negativity, but it doesn't have to be that way, to look at the principles that I've laid out. And some of the key principles, the most important one, the very first one is attitude is everything, the power of positivity. And that's a through line that I pull through the entire book. Another principle is choose your attitude and own it. You have the ability every day when you wake up to choose how you're going to approach the day. Make that very first thought, that very first decision, that very first roadmap for the day a positive one. I talk about laughing more often, and funny things are everywhere. I talk about minutes matter and how you think about and use your minutes. I don't give people, I don't judge how you use your minutes. And I don't say, well, it's better to spend time with family than work. It's better to read than watch TV. That's not true. Every person has to make that decision for themselves. What I encourage people to do is be thoughtful, be deliberate, and be proactive in how you use your minutes, so that they don't just disappear. So you don't get to the end of the day, the week, the month, the year, and you're like, man, I've been running around like crazy and I don't even know what I've done. You got to stop that today, and you got to be very deliberate and thoughtful on how you use your minutes, which ties to the goals that we talked about before, and setting goals and accomplishing those goals and doing what you love. Finding your passion is another important principle I talk about in the book. We all have passions, and those passions change over life. Find your passion, chase your passion. I talk about taking a chance and getting it done today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't be afraid of risk. Don't get caught up in fear. Take a chance, learn from your failures, move on, and do what you love. It's kind of I'd say a 3-4 minute synopsis of what the book is about and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, that's great. I think a lot of people could use that. And I know I could use a good read on that one myself. So, Scott, we thank you so much for being with us here today and opening up to us. And I'm sure our listeners appreciate this too. Again, this is Michael T., and I thank you for being with us this morning. To all our listeners, I would invite you to go to bookpartypodcast.com, hit that subscribe tab on top, scroll down to the icon of your choice, where you can find us on one of your favorite platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey. You can download and follow us there. Please leave a review and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get the latest information on our upcoming shows. Book Party Podcast is powered by MTM LLC Publishing. This is Michael T., and we are signing off.
You must not miss our next episode as we delve into a world of inspiration, entertainment, and thought-provoking insights. Join Michael T. on the next Book Party Podcast and experience a new adventure, a new story, and a complete immersion into the world of Pages Unveiled, Chronicles of the Writing Journey.